Welcome to the Saturday Slam and Jam here on the Athletic NBA Daily. On today's show, we are doing the way too early Eastern Conference rankings. With me is my buddy Fred Katz. Alex Spears is, celebrating America on this day. And Fred and I are talking about the Eastern Conference. We'll celebrate America later. Fred, thanks for joining me early here on July 4th.
To be clear, Alex Spears is actually at America Ferrera's business school graduation party.
Yeah.
He's not at any July 4th festivities.
Yeah, that's right. just to be clear about
right. It's if it were any other day, then I think people would know. Obviously, everyone's been following America Ferrera's trek through business school.
Yep.
Naturally.
Clarify.
Yes. Yeah, today that could be a little bit confusing.
Yep.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody got that right. I don't want any misinterpretations. I'd also like to apologize for not being Alex Spears. I feel like I've spent an unusual amount of my life apologizing to swaths of people for not being Alex Spears.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
But you'll deal. You'll deal with America Ferrera references right off the bat.
Right off the bat. If you want to see Alex Spears in person, he will be in Las Vegas, and we will record Slam and Jam live. So I will put out some details about that on Twitter and Blue Sky and all of that at some point. So we'd love for you guys to come watch us. And we'll also be doing trivia live on the concourse. So you may have a chance to be a Slam and Jam contestant. Andrew, we're going to do Andrew versus the Street out on the concourse in Las Vegas. So looking forward to that. Actually, I'm not looking forward to that at all. You should look forward to that. Should be very fun for you, not fun for me. So today, I wanted to just kind of tie a bow on, we did the West rankings. I thought that was really fun. Way too early, unnecessarily early to talk about rankings, but I thought it was pretty fun. And I thought it would be fun today to do the Eastern Conference. I feel like Fred is a great person to talk Eastern Conference with. Again, these are tiers, but they're also going to be ranked within the tiers. I am not going to cop out like Seth Partnow did. One more shot at Seth Partnow for saying that these are tiers. They're not rankings. These are both tiers and rankings. Okay. So take that into consideration. And if you're upset, you have the YouTube comments. Just leave some comments down below. Let us know if any of these make you miffed or peeved. Okay. We're going to start with the tanking teams. Fred.
Oh, we're going reverse.
We're going reverse. Yes.
All right. I have to say, you did not send me that these. I don't think you sent me that these.
I literally sent you no preparation. I told you what the concept was, and
you said just show up.
Yes.
So I have 6 tiers, not 5.
Okay.
I've also named my tiers different than tank, play-in, dark horse, fringe contenders, and contenders, as you have for the audio listeners who are not seeing that you just put a graphic up on the screen. Yep. So instead of tank, my tier 6 is called the loser for boozer tier.
Ooh,
with Cameron Boozer being a possible number 1 pick for next year.
Boozer. Yeah.
And okay, so am I starting? I have 3 teams here. Am I starting at 15 or starting at 13?
Start at 15. Let's say who we think the worst team in the East is going to be next year.
I think the worst team in the East, because gosh darn it, they're going to want to be, is the Washington Wizards.
You think?
You touched the Brooklyn Nets.
I was grabbing.
You touched the Brooklyn Nets. You were grabbing the Nets.
Well, we can throw up the Wizards, and then we can talk Nets, and then we can talk about who should be in what spot. But okay, talk me into the Wizards being the worst.
I think the Wizards will be the worst because the Wizards will want to be the worst. They still owe a top 8 protected pick out, and they are going to do whatever they can to make sure that pick is low and whatever they can to make sure they lose as many games as possible. And honestly, I didn't even consider the quality of players on either of these teams. Okay. I think the Wizards probably they certainly have better young talent than the Nets. Nets have a lot of rookies.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes.
True.
Nets have too many young ball handlers. They're going to struggle like crazy on that sense.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying the Wizards over the Nets is because the Wizards proved last year to be really good tankers, and the Nets proved last year to be really bad tankers. And I'm choosing you know what? The Wizards have the tanking experience. They've been through the grind of the tank.
Yeah.
They know how to execute. I'm using all the playoff cliches that we use to say who's going to win the title for tanking.
They have Will Dawkins too, who watched an expert tank in Oklahoma City years ago.
Participated in
it. Like, are they gonna send Marcus Smart home like they did Al Horford? Like, what's gonna happen here? I mean, like, yeah, I think despite the quality of players that might be on this team, I don't disagree that they want to be in the top 5 probably more than anybody. And the Nets have also shown that they kind of let things ride a little bit. They have a really good coach. They have good systems in place. And sometimes that will win you basketball games, even though like they shouldn't be. I don't know that they will this year though. Like I don't see the path for the Nets. Like I frankly just don't see a path for them. This next year or even moving forward. Like they have to get lucky in the lottery in order to like have a viable path forward.
Yeah, they do.
I'm very, very low on the Nets. I'm very, very low on the Nets for the foreseeable future. I don't see it. Their draft was preposterous. I have to say, as a Jew, it's a little disappointing when a team takes multiple Jewish guys for the first time since like Yeshiva's last recruiting class. And the reaction is just universally, well, that was a disaster. It does not bode well for us in our athletic feats moving forward. It's a little disappointing. They just took a bunch of dudes outside of Danny Wolf that just can't score. And turns out that scoring the basketball is part of it. And also guys that really can't defend either. And also stopping guys from scoring is also a huge part of basketball. They pick guys that can kind of do all the in-between stuff. And that is a terrifying proposition.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I will say, so much of sucking is just the motivation. I mean, I was joking around about it before, but it is so true. Like,
yeah,
the reason the Jazz ended up with number 1 lottery positioning this year was because they literally wanted to lose so much that they got fined for it.
Yeah.
One of the reasons the Wizards were number 2 was because they were like, we have a protected first round pick and we are making sure we dive to the bottom and we want to capture the flag. And that is what we want to do. And that was why they went the direction they went. Another reason that the Nets won this year more than certainly they should have is because Jordi Fernandez is really good.
Jordy's good. Yeah.
He is really good. He has, we don't know how he's going to be if he coaches a team with vets and that's supposed to be a contender and all of that, because it's a different sort of coaching experience when you're coaching young guys in these sorts of developmental games than it is. He might be really good. I mean, he obviously has head coaching experience with Team Canada and has been extremely well respected since well before he even got the head coaching job in Brooklyn. He was, a lot, he's very well credited for the success that Mike Brown had in Sacramento when he was on his staff there. He's really well respected. He is really good at just getting all of his guys to buy into whatever stuff they're running. Yeah. And I feel like on a team where there's not a lot of talent and there's a lot of youth, buy-in is just so important. The Nets last year played really well together. And I just feel like we could be in for a world where the Nets start like 10-22, which, and the Wizards are 5-27.
Yeah.
And they just can't make up that gap.
Yeah.
Throughout the rest of the year. I also think it's plausible. The Wizards have over $100 million in cap space in the summer of 2026. Now, when I tweeted out that the Wizards were going to have over $100 million in cap space, people were like, yeah, but who's signing with the Wizards? No one's signing with the Wizards. I mean, someone might sign with the Wizards, but like LeBron's not signing with the Wizards in 2026. And that's not the point. They're going to be coming off another losing season. And chances are what they're going to be doing is they're going to be trying to take on bad money from other teams, and they're going to take on sweeteners in order to take that bad money. So if someone is getting paid $35 million a year and has 3 years left on his deal, and he's not worth that amount of money, then they're going to take on that player, and they're going to get draft picks as well for the sake of taking that guy on, and that guy's team can dump them onto the Wizards, and they don't have to take back money. They could speed up that process, and they could do it in season because they've got some larger contracts. They've got Marcus Smart on the books. They've got Chris Middleton, who's expiring at $30-some-odd million on the books. So we could see them trade Chris Middleton for a worse player who's on an expensive contract, but is under contract for 26, 27. You get a draft pick out of it. Like, I could see them. Chris Middleton's still a solid player. Like, I could see them making moves like that, treating their expiring guys like expiring guys. Same thing with Marcus Smart. Same thing with CJ McCollum. I could see them making those moves, and that will not help them, by the end of the year.
Yeah, the whole tanking playbook is there for them. They've set it up really well. Like, now all they really need to do is land the right guys in the draft. And it's not always the guys that are at 1, 2, and 3. Like, ideally, yes, you get a top 3 pick in the draft. Like, that's very helpful. But like, Trey Johnson could be one of their like big pieces moving forward. We just don't know yet. But like, they just have to pick the right guys, because I think they're doing everything they should do. And even though you do everything you should do, it doesn't mean it always works out. And so this is where like so much luck comes into play for the Wizards. And that's the game that they're playing. And whenever you're a team that is trying to get better, Will Dawkins definitely is following the Sam Presti plan, and like, hey, let's get a lot of assets. Let's draft guys as high as we can and have a good culture. And he's really trying to rebuild that whole institution there in Washington. Anybody else that you think is a tanking team, a loser for Boozer?
Sorry, Charlotte.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Charlotte.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think this is probably the only other candidate here.
Yes, I agree. They don't really have a center.
Yeah.
I mean, they signed Mason Plumlee.
They did do that.
They don't really have a center. They traded away Mark Williams.
I was going to say they're all in Phoenix. So,
yep. Traded away Nick Richards last year midseason. Traded away Yusuf Nurkic. Now, to be clear, I'm not knocking them for any of those trades.
Yeah.
Like, Mark Williams, after he had failed his physical last year, still getting 1.5 first for him.
It's great.
That's fine with his injury history, and that's a fine trade. I had no problem with that trade for Charlotte whatsoever, especially when he's eligible for an extension this summer. Getting off the Nurkic deal,
it's great.
That's fine. I'm good with that move. There's no problem there.
I'd rather
Nick Richards deal.
Richards deal.
Yeah. Nick Richards deal they did with Charlotte, or they did with Phoenix midseason last year. They got all of Phoenix's remaining second round picks at the time. That was a good deal for a backup center. Phoenix thought he could be a starter. By about 3 weeks into his time with Phoenix, he was coming off the bench. That was a good deal for Charlotte. Like, they're all fine, but their roster is a bit like, I don't really know what they are. Brandon Miller could make a jump, but also Brandon Miller like had his moments of inefficiency last year. LaMelo, you got to worry about health stuff. You also got to worry about him just like, is he going to play disciplined basketball, or is this just going to be the LaMelo show? Which, last year the numbers were obviously unbelievable, but that was the LaMelo show. And there's some people who have just written him off. I'm not doing that. He's too young. You don't score like that. You don't play with confidence like that. And you don't pass like that at that age without me sitting here thinking like, okay, well, let's see what happens. Let's see. People can mature. They can develop. They can evolve. He's super young.
Yeah, he'll turn 24 in August. So I don't, you should not give up on him yet.
Yes. There are people who are like, talking about him the same way they talked about Devin Booker years ago, where it's like, oh man, this guy's just totally empty stats and he's a useless player. He's a good stats, bad team guy, and he always will be. I'm like, I'm not there. But last year, he was that. He can develop past that because of his talent level in various facets of the game. It's not like he's just got tunnel vision and that's it. Like, he's a tremendous passer. But he's got to play winning basketball in a different kind of way than he did last year. We'll see. We'll see. They have a lot of guys who are, if LaMelo's good and Knippel's good off the bat, and Brandon Miller takes a leap, which he's really talented, so maybe he will. Maybe this team is a little bit better, but I think they're still relatively undisciplined. And I also feel like, I think this needs to be said, after all that I said about the Wizards just now, about their dedication to the lifestyle of the tank. The dedication to the lifestyle, Andrew. The Charlotte Hornets were their white whale. The Wizards went 0-4 or 0-4 against the Hornets. Wait, 0-4?
It's the opposite.
4-0. What am I saying? The Wizards went 4-0.
It's when you're tanking, the wins feel like losses.
That's why I confused myself.
Yeah.
The Wizards went 4-0 against the Hornets last year.
Yeah.
So if I'm throwing the Wizards here, and I don't think the Hornets got meaningfully better, I don't think I can put them in a different tier than the Wizards.
Yeah.
I definitely, the next one you have is play-in, and I can't put them in play-in.
No, they're not going to be competing for the play-in, and that's okay. Like, they're not ready for that yet. They have to kind of reshape their roster in some ways, and they shouldn't give up assets to try to get better this year. They shouldn't do any of that. Even though like the East is really weird, they're not in position to do any damage in the Eastern Conference. Okay, I think this makes sense for like the teams that are tanking. Who's up next for you? Who's a play-in team? And there are so many confusing teams here. The first one that I think of is this team right here, the Chicago Bulls, as a play-in team, perpetually a play-in team. I don't know what. I mean, I assume they're going to re-sign Josh Giddey, and they're going to kind of run back this crew that they have here. But they're kind of a confounding team in some ways, but also in other ways they're not. I just think they're a play-in team.
Can you explain the Lonzo Ball for Okoro trade from the Bulls' perspective?
It's an awesome question. I don't know how you can get this far down the road with Isaac Okoro and think like, oh yeah, that's the kind of guy that we want on our team. I just don't. I don't know how you get that far down the road. Because I mean, what else? I guess I would want to know like what else could have been on the table for Lonzo. Like, could you have gotten like a protected, like highly protected first for him? Could you have found a different player that maybe fit a little bit better with what you want to do? I don't know. Like, how much does Okoro even? How much does he play for Chicago next year? Like, how much does he fit into the plans for them? How much of this is like, hey, Lonzo wants to be in a winning situation? I don't know exactly what that looks like. To me, that probably makes, if I were to try to make sense of it, it would be like, hey, Lonzo's people really want him to be on a winning team. And like, could you help him get there? It's like, okay, yeah, we'll see what we can find. That to me, if I was to try to make sense of it, that makes the most sense. If they're just calling like, hey, we'd love to just get Isaac Okoro, like that makes sense to me for the Chicago team.
Yeah, I mean, Isaac Okoro every year come the postseason is out of his team's rotation.
Yep.
However, that probably won't be a problem for the Bulls. So it's fine, I guess.
It'll be just fine.
That's
I don't know.
fine.
There's going to be some weird stuff that happens in the Eastern Conference playoffs play-in this next year. There's going to be some weird.
I mean, look, I'm very intrigued to see what the deal that Giddey gets is. I'm sure he'll end up. He's restricted right now. I'm sure he'll end up going back to Chicago for some price.
Yeah,
very interested to see what that contract is going to be.
Yeah,
the Bulls were good and fun after the All-Star break last year.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is difficult to evaluate exactly what that means for the upcoming season because March and the first half of April basketball in the NBA is often useless in terms of trying to project into the future.
There's a reason they call it Mickey Mouse March. All right. There's a reason for it. It's largely, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens, and a lot of it is largely not real. So yeah.
Yep. And is Mickey Mouse not real?
We'll have to talk about that after the show. Okay, Fred.
So Giddey averaged almost a triple-double, like a 20-point triple-double over the last however many games of the year. He was tremendous at the end of the year. He even got some little MIP convo after. Kobe White was really good. They play a really fast, really frantic style. They jack up threes, and it kind of catches teams by surprise because people are like, whoa, the Bulls are playing at this pace, and the Bulls are just jacking up threes out of double teams with 20 seconds left on the shot clock, and these are the shots they want. What's going on here? And I think it kind of catches teams by surprise. I don't know if it'll catch teams by surprise as much next year when they've already spent a year seeing it, but it might, because it's not like players who are coming into Chicago are spending the whole week being like, oh God, we got the Bulls on Saturday. How are we going to deal with that? And it just kind of catches them by surprise. I think they could be like a little frisky here and there. And I think their future is written for them. I told you I did my own tiers. I named this tier that I have. Who else are you going to put 9th and 10th in the East tier? Even though based on this, they might not be 9th and 10th in the East because this is really 11th, but in spirit, 9th and 10th in the East. And based on that name, I think you can probably guess who else I'm putting in the play-in tier.
I think I can. I do want to say that I wonder about their draft a little bit because they took Noah Essengay, who's kind of this mystery box prospect that certainly needs a long runway. And I wonder if that shows, I'm curious if it shows some self-awareness on their part. They're like, hey, we have a long way to go. We're willing to take this guy that we think has the highest ceiling, that is not ready to contribute next year, like as a guy that's going to help contribute to winning. And so I wonder if there's some self-awareness there with Chicago, and that I wonder what they'll do with Vooch. I wonder all of that, but I just wonder if there's like, hey, self-awareness here. Like, this is the guy that has the highest ceiling. And even if it takes a couple of years, we're willing to take him because we're not necessarily super competitive. So,
all right, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say the Bulls are top 8 in the East.
Yeah.
Which we have to account for because the East is something.
Yeah.
We haven't really discussed that, but let's say the Bulls are top 8 in the East.
Yep.
If you just don't follow the NBA season this year at all, and then we talk again in April, I'm like, hey, the Bulls finished 7th in the East. What would be your guess as to how it happened?
Maybe like Giddey and Kobe White take a step forward. And also maybe there's injuries to other teams. is how it happens. Like we have these teams at the bottom, and then there's other teams that have debilitating injuries that keep them, like maybe like Siakam misses like 40 games or something, and Indiana falls or something like that happens. Like that is actually probably the most likely case.
Jeez.
is that there's debilitating injuries for other teams.
That's a ruthless answer. So how do you think the Bulls got 7th? Oh my goodness, everyone died. That's your response.
I'm not a huge fan of this Bulls roster, as you could tell with my answer. But but I do think like there's going to be opportunities, and like what I talked about is it's a reality for every single NBA season. Is that there's somebody that gets hurt that's not expected. Rankings like this like end up just getting thrown out because something happens to somebody, and and maybe some of that stuff has already happened, like with the Celtics and whatnot. But yeah, that would be my guess because I just like a lot of these other teams a lot better.
I'll give you my answer.
Okay.
It is what we saw from Giddey in the last third of this past season wasn't flukish. He averages a really productive 19, 8.5, 8.5. And Kobe White is Kobe White.
Yep.
They get really hot from three for the entire season because they take a ton of threes. They were like, I think they were first no, they weren't first, but they were top 5 in the NBA in 3-point rate. And I think they were first in the NBA in pace, I think. Mm-hmm. They play this really fast and frantic style. They get really hot from three. Some of their guys who are maybe okay or solid 3-point shooters just have killer 3-point shooting seasons. And my other one is a guy we haven't spoken about really at all is Matas Buzelis has a really nice second year breakout.
Sure.
Like, I'm not saying becomes an all-star. I don't think that's realistic, but like the end of last season, he's another guy who, he's playing 25, 26 minutes a game. He's scoring a super efficient 14 points. He's hitting his threes in that time. He's really good going to the rim. He's a really good cutter already. He was a really good rookie. He's got a ton of potential. And I think he could become a legit starter. And if he shows that in year 2, which is on the table, then, we're just talking about the Bulls rising above, other teams that we're going to name that are not exactly that much more inspiring than Chicago.
Yeah. He shot 36% from three. And after the All-Star break, he was 13, 5, and 2. For a rookie, for a young rookie. I mean, that's really good. His basketball reference nickname?
Buzelis is?
No. Lil Boozy Vert.
I could never in a million years have gotten that.
That's his only basketball reference nickname.
Who would call him that?
Please let us know in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, anywhere, if anyone has ever called him that. Okay. I need to know. I need to know who you are, because I'm in agreement that I don't know. Okay, where are we going next? I think we spent way too much time on these bad teams.
They're the most fun. All right, next up, also in my write them in to the 9 and 10 seed tier, even though we don't really have them 9 and 10 based on this. This tier is Toronto.
Okay. I get that. I totally get that.
But
I am perplexed by this team in so many ways. I don't know what they're doing or where they're going, because I just feel like they have too many unnecessarily good players that all play the same position and all do the same things. And like they just, I don't mind the draft pick. I like Colin Murray-Boyles a lot. I think he's a good player. I don't know what the path is for him to become the best player with the way that the roster is today. And I also don't know how they take this roster and change it over. Like, who's trading for RJ Barrett? I think is like a question that I have for them. The Brandon Ingram trade is still just one of the more perplexing ones to me, and trade an extension, because when you look at what they have, like I just don't know how they believe that propels them forward. I just don't get it. I look at the roster, I just don't get it.
Manuel Quickley is at his best when he's got the ball in his hands. He can create, he can run high pick and roll.
Yes.
He can create for others. He can kick to the corners. He can pull up from three. He can get to
He's
his
a good
floater.
player. He's a good player.
When he's at his best. RJ Barrett had the best season of his career last year. Certainly the best passing season. He was about 900 times better as a facilitator last year than he has ever been at any moment of his life. I thought he was genuinely one of the most improved players in the league last year, if only for his passing, facilitating, and decision-making. Better around the rim. Part of the reason Raptors had injuries. RJ had to take over the offense.
Yep.
He was much better with the ball in his hands when he was able to facilitate. Brandon Ingram, really good ISO scorer, can be good in pick and rolls. I actually think he's an underrated passer. He is an awesome cross-court passer. He just sees things and he's able to pass over a defense incredibly well. Best when he has the ball in his hands.
Yep.
Scotty Barnes can do a lot of stuff without the ball. However, when you had OG Anunoby there, and when you had Pascal Siakam there, part of the initiative was, okay, how can we turn this into Scotty's team? How can we get him the ball more? How can we figure out ways to use him? It's not happening. Scotty Barnes, not a shooter. RJ Barrett, better shooter than he used to be, but also not good enough to where guys frantically try to close out on him on the perimeter. Yeah. Brandon Ingram doesn't shoot threes at a high enough volume to where he can space. And Jakob Poeltl is a solid player who I don't think is necessarily the defender that he was like 4 years ago as a rim protector. The analytics at least say that he's not the rim protector that he used to be. And he's going to hang around the middle, and he's a good player, and he had a really nice year last year, but he's going to hang around the middle. The spacing in that starting five is strange. The fact that you have four guys who would like to have the ball is just a stylistic contrast that no team needs. I don't see how it is going to work well. I agree with you that it's confounding because I roll through their roster, and for the most part, I'm like, Scotty Barnes, obviously a good player. Emmanuel Quickley, obviously a good player. RJ Barrett, vastly improved. I thought he was a good player last year.
He's a good pro. Yeah.
Yeah. Like RJ Barrett's a good player now. Like RJ Barrett has worked incredibly hard on fixing a lot of his flaws and was not a black hole last year. It was just, he was really good in transition. He was a really good transition passer. He had the most efficient, the last 2 years have been the most efficient scoring seasons, really, since he went to Toronto. Most efficient scoring seasons of his career by a landslide. And he's like above league average efficiency now when he was constantly like well below it before. I covered him on a everyday basis for, when he was with the Knicks, and he's an incredibly hard worker. So it's not shocking to me that it happened, but he's become a solid player. Ochai Agbaji, I thought, had a really good year for them last year as a 3-and-D guy off the bench. Grady Dick can shoot and has a lot of potential. I go through the roster and I'm like, all right, like there's a lot of good players and they all fit each other terribly. And basketball is not about overall talent. It's not baseball. You don't just put together a lineup and you're like, all right, we have a good leadoff hitter. We have a number 2 hitter. We have a number 3 hitter. We have a cleanup hitter. We're good to go. And they just kind of all do their own individual acts just lined up. It's not that. You have to enhance each other. And it's a bunch of players who don't do the opposite of enhance each other. I think they detract from each other. I think we saw that for a lot of last year. And I think we will see that again this year, even with the East being super downtrodden.
Yeah.
And tough task for Darko Rajakovic. It's tough.
It's tough. And they just drafted a guy at 9 who is similar mold, like good defensive player, needs the basketball in his hands to be effective because passing is his best skill. I just don't know how you make it all work. It is a very tough ask because the amount, like they basically have one guy who plays off ball and Grady Dick. Like that's probably it.
Yeah. Agbaji,
sure. But that's not enough. That's not how you win basketball games.
No.
Okay.
It's not. It's not. And if I can add, I did not hear this myself, but it was reported by various other outlets, so I'm sure it's true, that the trade that Atlanta did with New Orleans on draft night, where Atlanta gave up 13 to New Orleans so New Orleans could move up from 23 to 13. And in order for Atlanta to give up that pick and move back 10 spots, they got the best of New Orleans's and Milwaukee's first round pick in 2026, which could be an insanely high pick.
Yeah.
You know, the public reporting is that New Orleans was offering that package to a bunch of teams in front of Atlanta too, including Toronto. I don't know why Toronto didn't do that deal.
I don't know. I don't know why.
I'm so confused. Like, you can move back 14 spots and you get New Orleans' first round pick and maybe get Milwaukee's, see what happens with Milwaukee this year. And, if something, they probably won't be worse than New Orleans, but they could fall off a cliff. And even if they don't, like, New Orleans won 21 games last year and the West is better. Yeah. Like,
honestly, if you're outside the top 7, like, why wouldn't you do that deal?
I can't believe they didn't do that deal.
Yeah. Why didn't the Brooklyn do that deal? They took a guy that might have been there at 16 anyways at 8.
Yeah. Yeah. And if they really wanted him, if he was going to be there at, like, if they really wanted him, they could have traded up with all their other picks. They could have just packaged 23 and 27 and 28.
And you get
moved up some.
And you get that pick. Yeah, it's crazy. I also have Miami in the play-in range. I really don't know what Miami is. I don't know what they're going to be. I know they're going to be well coached. Bam Adebayo is a great player. Tyler Hero had a great year last year. Really, really nice year. Davion Mitchell. Obviously had a great close to his season. Earn a contract. That's amazing. Like, they've got pros. Andrew Wiggins. I just don't know. Like, it's a very uninspiring team to me, though. Like, I think they're going to be in the play-in range. It's possible they make the playoffs, but this is not a team I feel like can win a round, and so I don't know exactly where they're going.
So the reason that I have 6 tiers instead of 5 is because we went through my tier 5. My tier 4 is one team, and the name of the tier is it feels disrespectful to group the Heat with the Bulls and Raptors tier.
It kind of does. Maybe not for me. Maybe for you.
Because I just feel like I never know. And I also think the Heat are probably a little bit better than those teams, if only because you have Eric Spoelstra. Bam Adebayo had a really bad year last year. He had a really bad year last year. And I don't think it was because he got worse. I think he just had a really bad year. His jumper went away. He was much better in the second half. But his jumper went away. And as a scorer, I thought he fell off. As a facilitator, I didn't think he was as good. He did not have a great year. He was really good defensively. He always is. That is a constant with Bam. He's just one of the best defenders in the NBA. But even, there have been times where I thought Bam should have been Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
And this year he was a guy who, like, I didn't have him on my all defense this year.
Yeah.
He was on the list. He was really close on the list, but I ended up not putting him on there. And I still think of him as one of the best defenders in the NBA. I would guess, with a very good amount of confidence. Feels like Bam's been around forever. He's only 27 years old. It's not like he looked old or anything. He just had a bad year. I would guess with a pretty supreme amount of confidence that Bam Adebayo is going to have a significantly better year this year than he did last year.
Yeah.
And I think that will make them better. And they won't have to deal with all the Jimmy drama, which completely and utterly derailed everything.
That's what I was about to say. It was not a stable work environment for anybody in Miami last year.
People there were miserable last year. And I get it. Some of us, Kevin Love came out and was like, we're not pissed at Jimmy, whatever else. But the whole situation I'm not saying Kevin Love was lying. I take his word at that. And I understand why he would feel that way too. Jimmy's a friend of his. Like I understand that. Not knocking him in the least. But that entire situation, whether because of Jimmy specifically for some people, or because of just the environment that the Jimmy situation caused, just made it a really crappy work environment. People with the Heat were just a lot more miserable last year than they normally are. And, teams talk all the time about they're not wanting to be distractions. Now, distractions can hurt you. You will never, ever meet a player or a head coach who disagrees with that statement about how you never hear anybody say, distractions aren't a big deal.
Yeah.
Not that big of a deal. You've never heard that in my entire life from anyone. Doesn't matter who you are. And so they're not going to have that this year. They're starting in a fresher spot, and that'll be good for them. And they're the Heat, They could go into the playoffs with 42 wins, and I'll be like, got to watch out for the Heat, man.
Even without Jimmy, you feel that way?
Yes, because they have Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah.
Someone on that team, Andrew, is going to break out, and we're going to be like, that guy? We're going to be like, wait, Pill Larson is really good?
Hello, Ware takes this massive jump.
I mean, first of all, that will literally be true. He will take a ton of massive jumps, and it could figuratively be true. He is quite good.
I like Ware a lot. I think it was a great pick for them. He didn't shoot it that well last year from three, but he's a guy that projects to be able to really shoot it from three. He protects the rim. He's giant. I think it's a great guy to put next to Bam as a role playing center that can do a lot of the things that Bam doesn't do. So I think it's great. I think it's a great pair.
I think can I make a bold call?
Make a bold call. This is your time. July 4th, man. Celebrate.
I think a Nikola Jovic breakout is coming.
Okay.
I think that's coming.
What does that look like?
I'm trying to think if there's a good Jokic joke to make. It looks like a dude who is taking a higher volume of threes. He is consistently now like really hitting from three. He's getting way more comfortable from there behind the arc. It's a dude who's able to do some more stuff out of the dribble, whose passing improves some, whose finishing around the rim is getting better, whose post game is getting better. And who is more comfortable within Miami's offense and sets, better cutter, better off ball player. I think he's going to be, he's got a chance to really be a very, very solid player. And again, he's also been around for a while, but he's only 22. I think he was
going to say he just turned 22.
Was he 18 when he got drafted?
Yes. I mean, he was
18 when he got drafted.
He had to have been one of the youngest guys in that class.
Yeah. And so man, he's very far from his prime, and he was sneakily really solid for them last year. They won 37 games. They completely and utterly fell off a cliff at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Part of it was he didn't play too. Like he was out the second half of the season, pretty much.
I don't know. I guess people will say to me, like, probably going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, you're just counting on the jersey. And I'm like, no, I'm really just counting on Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah.
Just like there's like one coach in the NBA who I'm like, no, that dude is probably going to make these guys way better than I think they could be, because he literally does it every single year, no matter what, no exceptions.
And there should be no distractions too. Like you get to start the year more professionally as an organization. You get to kind of ground yourself as to who you think you are and like move forward that way without having this like trade hanging over you all season. I do think that there's just value in that. I don't think that it's going to get them higher than playing range. I mean, it's possible that it does, but I wouldn't say that they're dark horses. I still think that this is a team that could make the play-in, which means you could make the playoffs, which means you're probably going out in round one. It's kind of the way that I think this team is structured, and they're probably just going to wait around until somebody either gets traded there or wants to go there or whatever. They deserve the benefit of the doubt to just kind of hang around because Miami is an amazing place to live.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
It is. That place is like heaven. It is amazing. People think of Miami as like clubby and sceney and whatever else, but there are so many areas of Miami that are just gorgeous and peaceful and wonderful. And I can't imagine living in a nicer place. Miami is unbelievable. It's amazing.
Okay. I am so curious as to where you go next, because like the teams that we have left. So let's just recap real quick. We've only done 6 teams here. We have Washington, Brooklyn, and Charlotte at the bottom, losers for boozer. We have our play-in teams. I think I like the Bulls a little better than Toronto. I just think they make a little bit more sense in the way that they're structured. So I'm going to put Toronto, Chicago, Miami. And now we've entered the dark horse realm here. And there are teams like we have the injured Indiana Pacers without Halliburton and no Miles Turner. We have the 76ers here, which are a complete wild card as to what they could be. We have the Milwaukee Bucks there that have Miles Turner, but the rest of the roster is questionable. Those may be the teams that we put in this range. We have the Boston Celtics, who have completely ripped their team apart, and is Luka Garza their center? I don't know. Where do you go next?
Well, so can I just say the 4 teams that I have in this tier? Because I feel like it's a conversation to be had about all of them with the way that I tiered them.
Sure.
So I guess technically this is above the play-in, even though this is really my 6 through 10 in the East.
Yeah.
Or 6 through 9 or whatever. So anyway, I named it the everyone's hurt tier.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I put all the teams where everyone's hurt.
Yeah.
From bottom to top, I had Indiana.
Yeah.
I had Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I had Philadelphia, even though everyone's not hurt now, but I just assume everyone will be hurt.
People are perpetually hurt in Philadelphia.
Exactly. Yep. And I had Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Where technically Damian Lillard's not on the roster anymore, but obviously Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles shaped their season.
There's a paycheck that says Milwaukee Bucks on it. That's going his direction.
Yes, correct. And for me, the reason I put the Pacers last is because they lost arguably their 2 most important, at least regular season pieces. Obviously, Halliburton is going to be there. And I don't think Miles Turner is their second best player. Pascal Siakam's their second best player. I voted for Pascal Siakam.
He's not their best player. Yeah.
Yeah. Pascal Siakam is so underrated. I voted for him for Eastern Conference Finals MVP and took flack for not voting for Halliburton. And you know what? I stand by it. Pascal Siakam was incredible in that series. He is great for the style that they play and whatever else. They're going to have to play a different style without Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, he is the reason you play that style. The reason I say Miles Turner is maybe their other most important player is because Miles Turner's value, while he is obviously a good player, his value doesn't necessarily come in his quality as much as it comes in his skill set. Doesn't come in the skills, comes in the skill set. And it's because he is an above average rim protector, an above average center with some scheme versatility, and he can shoot threes well enough to where you have to guard him on the 3-point arc. And there are very few centers in the league, especially ones who are not all-stars. There are very few centers in the league who actually fit that description, can actually fill both of those roles. It is an incredibly small number of players who are able to do that. And most of the ones who are able to do that, by the way, are like, Joel Embiid. They're like MVPs and all-stars and whatever else.
And like unavailable to your franchise.
Yep.
Wire.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they're going to lose Turner, or they lost Turner, I should say.
Yeah.
And it is going to be difficult for them to recover from those things. I feel similarly about Rick Carlisle as I do to Eric Spoelstra. And
100%, 100,000%. Like he was.
You know what, Andrew?
Yeah.
I have to say, you know, I'm not a very spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
There's one shrine at which I do worship. One altar at which I do worship, and it is the altar of the basketball gods. And I think if you come one win away from making the finals, and I get it, Tyrese Halliburton got hurt, and you're not going to be a contender this year, regardless. And to be clear, this is not a statement on Pacers ownership or Pacers management. I'm every single GM in the league would love to pay as many dollars as you possibly can. It's not them setting the budget.
Yeah.
To not even climb a little bit into the tax and retain Miles Turner, because 2 years from now, you still have a young roster and you have a group where they'll have continuity and you try to keep it together. And 2 years from now, you might be able to win it all when Tyrese Halliburton's back.
Yeah.
And to lose Miles Turner, who we just described as someone with an archetype that is immensely improbable to replace, if not for them, impossible to replace. Someone with that skill set who can spread the floor so that your offense is going to be spread and you don't have somebody hanging in the middle. That is incredibly important for the way that they cut, for the way that they screen with all of those ghost screens they have with Siakam. It is incredibly important to have a five who is not standing there in the middle. And it is incredibly important for them from a defensive standpoint to have a five who's at least, he's not an all defense defender, but he is good. He is an above average, good, solid defender who can block a shot. He can contest the rim, plays hard.'re not looking there being like Miles Turner is dogging it today. Like you got scheme versatility. He's mobile. Like your chances are you are not going to be able to find another guy like that, the ideal center there.
Mm-hmm.
And to throw away possibly a chance at the 2027 title because you don't want to pay a little bit of tax this year after you came one win away from the finals this year. And when everyone was like, this was a true Cinderella story with the Pacers this year.
Yep.
That had a different kind of vibe to it than most Cinderella stories. Most Cinderella stories are looked at, wow, that was so fun and that was adorable. Yeah. Butler makes the NCAA tournament final. We're like, that was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, do you think Butler is better than Kentucky? And they're like, no, what are you talking about? You know, the Pacers changed everyone's mind. By the time it got to the finals, no one was like, wow, this is some flukish run. Everyone was like, wow, you know what? This team is awesome. This team is so good. It was impossible to watch their entire playoff run. And maybe it took you a little while to get on the train, but it was impossible to watch their playoff run and not have the reaction at some point of like, well, I was totally wrong. Like this team is just awesome. Like what amazing. Unbelievably high caliber basketball that we saw, right? All the way through the finals. Like there weren't a lot of great games in the finals in terms of like down to the wire other than game one and game four. Like in terms of like down to the wire. The reason it was a really good finals was because it was just unbelievable basketball. It was just two teams that are like, you watched it and you were like, these are the two teams that deserve to be here. Like, this is unbelievable high quality. One of the best played finals we've seen in a long time in terms of the quality of basketball. And to break that up, I just think the basketball guys are going to be like, no, you don't get to avoid. You're going to be in the worst place you could possibly be in this year. They're going to be like, you don't get this. Also, for what it's worth, and I don't think I've seen anyone make this point, the NBA changed in the new CBA, the NBA changed the tax rules. They changed the rules on tax payments. And people have talked so much about the first apron and the second apron and how you have to pay so much money now when you go into the second apron because the tax multipliers are crazy when you go into the second apron, and how because of that, plus the restrictions on the resources that you have in terms of team building, how those are going to double is turning the second apron into a hard cap. So many people have had that discussion. But there was another effect that the CBA did cap-wise, and the rules were phased in. They were phased in a little bit in 2023-24, then a little more in 24-25. And this is the year where it's fully going into effect, which is that the teams that are just barely over the tax do not have to pay the same tax payment as they used to. They're actually paying less. So what this CBA was supposed to do was it was supposed to discourage teams essentially from going way over the tax, but encourage teams from going a little bit over the tax. This CBA was made, the rules starting in 25-26, this season, right now. These rules were made to encourage a team in the exact situation that the Pacers are in to go into the tax.
Oh,
and,
boy.
And yet they chose not to. And
well, Herb Simon just won't pay the tax. He just won't pay the tax.
Yeah, I'm just incredibly disappointed. They were gonna pay the tax. If Tyrese Halliburton were healthy, there is no doubt to me that they would go into the tax.
Yeah.
They would have gone into the tax if Tyrese Halliburton if he were healthy. I was told all year they were going to do it. I was told all year they wanted to re-sign Miles Turner. They were going to do it. I'm just doesn't even make. I'm not angry about it. I'm just so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in them. Like, I'm so disappointed in their ownership group. Like, what depriving the basketball world of that team. What a amazing team they had this year.
Yep.
Like, emphasis on team. It was gorgeous. That was beautiful. Watching people come together like that and just enhance each other in every way possible in the most unselfish fashion you could imagine.
Yep.
That was beautiful. They were an unbelievable team with unbelievable vibes. And it is so disappointing that they didn't want to pay a little extra money to make sure they could keep that together. Maybe not for this year because Tyrese Halliburton's hurt, but for 2 years from now when everyone's still young and healthy. And I just hated that. I totally hated it.
Yeah, you can make the argument that they could be here in the play-in.
Yeah, you know what? Throw them there.
We're throwing them down. They're no longer
in the play-in.
They're no longer in the dark horse. Everybody's hurt. Who knows what's going to happen tier. I think this is actually pretty fair. Like I don't know. I don't know what else Boston is going to do, but like Derek White, Jaylen Brown, like that's a lot of teams that are down here would love to have the combination of those two, as like their two best guys. And they're going to have to figure it out with their big man position for sure. But I think those guys can at least like put a scare into somebody. I think those guys are really good. And they get like, this is not going to be a wasted year for the Celtics. I think they're going to get a chance to kind of let those guys spread their wings a little bit and see what they can become. Because there's still development to be had for those players. And so I'm interested to see what that looks like. The Sixers are, I am just like wait and see on the Sixers. It is all on Joel Embiid's shoulders and to a lesser extent on Paul George's shoulders as to what they become. But they've got interesting young pieces there. And then Milwaukee is literally, it's all about Giannis. Like, what is Giannis capable of?
Yep. The Sixers they have the largest gap, as they always do, between their floor and their ceiling of any team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
If the Sixers won 55 games, I'd be like, all right, I guess they could. If the Sixers won 27 games, I'd be like, well, they just did that. So that's on the table too.
Yep.
I don't know how many games Embiid is going to play. I don't know how many games Paul George is going to play. I don't know how it's going to look. I'm very interested to see what happens with Quentin Grimes' free agency. Yeah. I'm very interested to see how they handle their guard rotation with Maxey and McCain back. I think Jared McCain is really good. I think he has a chance to be really, really good.
Well, and VJ drafted third.
I'm really curious to see how that goes. I think they're making a real effort to re-sign Quentin Grimes, and I would expect that he ends up re-signed there. I don't know what that money is going to be. I know Tony Jones reported that he was asking for 25 a year. I don't think he'll get that, but we'll see. Normally you ask for something, they retaliate, they respond with something, and then you meet in the middle. I just don't know if those guys are going to stay healthy, and I don't know if the culture is going to be strong enough to hold them up when those guys are out, and we'll see. So I have them here. And Milwaukee, I'm worried about the guard and wing play. Like who are the
are you?
Like who's getting the ball to Giannis? Like Giannis and Miles Turner is a really good front court. Obviously, you've got the best player in the Eastern Conference, and I just described everything you need to know about Miles Turner. Bobby Portis is a really good next big man, just really solid. I'm obsessed with Bobby Portis's relationship with the city of Milwaukee. I think it's fantastic. I love that that's where his career went. It's kind of like a Zach Randolph arc in terms of people being like, thinking that Bobby Portis is a problem, and then it turns out like when he punches Mirotic, and from everything that I heard, Bobby Portis punching Mirotic, I don't blame him for punching him from everything that I've heard about that story. And when I covered Bobby Portis, he was like this beloved teammate, and I was a little surprised based on his reputation to see that. I'm like, everybody loves this guy. And I just think it's great that his arc has completely changed.
Yeah, I thought you were about to say I'm obsessed with his relationship with Sean Highkin. That's what I thought you were going to say.
That I love. When I met Bobby Portis, he just told me they love Sean Highkin. And that was
Highkin.
Shout out to Sean Highkin, does a great job covering the Blazers, and Bobby Portis just is a huge Sean Highkin fan. It's so funny when a player just like is like a huge fan of reading a beat writer. Like it's so rare. Like you never hear that. It is so funny. Yeah, Bobby Portis, when I met him for the first time, him just declaring within like 2 sentences of just like, I love Sean Highkin, is amazing. It is so funny. But Milwaukee, it's like who's
going under 33.5 per game for Giannis this year? Because listen, I don't know what, I mean, who takes all the shots for them? Because like they're bringing a guy, Miles Turner, is obviously going to score for them, but like they're like, who is the second scorer for Milwaukee next year? Like who's
Kevin Porter Jr. probably.
Oh boy,
probably Kevin Porter Jr.
Well, now you're making me want to put Milwaukee in the play-in tier.
I mean, it probably is. I mean, he's going to run the offense. He's going to be the one getting him the ball. It's not going to be Ryan Rollins, and Kevin Porter Jr. is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. And the thing, what is good for Giannis is that it went a little under the radar last year, I thought, from a national level. Giannis became a much, much better shooter last year, and he wasn't draining threes. However, Giannis's mid-range shooting was significantly better last year than it has ever been.
Yep.
And the way you know that, I mean, I can call up the percentages right here. Like Giannis shot 44% on long twos last year, which was the highest percentage of his career. He took 15% of his shots from long two, which is fine for a superstar player if he's hitting them. And that was the second highest number of his career. His second year of his career, he took 19%. 44% was his best by a long shot. And then from the short mid-range, he was 48%, which was also his best of his career by a long shot. He was way better at shooting off the dribble, and more important than the percentages. And by the way, those percentages went up with teams guarding him differently because they started to respect his mid-range more. And that's what's way more important than the percentages. It is that the fact that teams were guarding him differently. Defenses started to respect the fact that he got better shooting from the mid-range. So what was happening was Giannis could take a guy, he could pump a guy after getting the ball in, say, the high post. And it used to be, okay, lay off of Giannis a little bit. Not all the way, because then he's got steam going to the rim, and he'll just dunk on you. And if you're 16 feet out, then if you lay back all the way, then he's just going to dunk on you. If you lay off a little bit and you just worry about the drive and the pass and not the shot, then you're okay. And if he takes the shot, you're like, whatever. Teams started to contest the shot. They started to get into him a little bit more. And what you started to see is Giannis got away with some pump fakes and stuff from the mid range, and he'd get a guy to commit to the shot, and then he'd just go to the rim. He's become a better creator for himself because of that. He's obviously become a better shooter by becoming a better shooter, but it's opened up more things for him in a more subtle kind of way than when guys like Brook Lopez adds an extreme 3-point shot or something. That will be very helpful for him this year. Damian Lillard tearing his Achilles was so big, changed everything. I do think Miles Turner is an upgrade on Brook Lopez. I don't know if he's enough of an upgrade that it warrants paying him $27 million a year plus paying Damian Lillard $22 million a year of dead cap money. Miles Turner for $27 a year is fine on its face. It's the dead money from stretching Lillard that hurts. But yeah, the Bucks are not great, Bob.
Yeah, not.
But Giannis is so amazing that, like, I don't know, they could just win 46 games because Giannis could just be the MVP this year. Like Giannis could just be the MVP. And he could average 33 and 13 and 6 and play amazing defense. And, then they go nuts.
Yeah, I think that's totally possible. Like, this could be his Kobe year, where it's like Kobe's playing with Chris Mim and he's just like leading the league in scoring. And like, maybe there is like, hey, like Smush Parker to Kevin Porter Jr. Like, I'm actually liking this comp a little bit more. Like, this makes some sense. And then like, they're going to have to figure out a path forward from there. And I don't know what that looks like, but they're going to have to figure it out. And they're willing to be creative. They're willing to, I mean, it was audacious for them to do what they did with Dame. Like, it's crazy. But if you're keeping Giannis, you have to do crazy stuff with the position that they're in because the amount of draft picks they have, they don't have it. The amount of good players around him, they're all kind of gone. And so the fact that they were able to just manufacture a player in Miles Turner is pretty impressive. And I kind of hate he's not that much better than Brook Lopez. Like, he's quite a bit better than Brook Lopez at this stage in both of their careers. So like, I don't like people saying that. I think like that's not totally fair to the situation. I think that they are in a better position today than they were before. Are they closer to a title? No. Like, I don't think that they're like going to win the title. I don't think they're better than a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference, but I don't know what their other options were, as far as like trying to contend. Okay, next tier.
Can I just add? Eric Name made the great point. They just played in the first round playoff series, the Bucks and the Pacers.
Yeah.
And Miles Turner played Brook Lopez off the floor, and Brook Lopez did not play Miles Turner off the floor.
Yep.
That's probably a good indicator of who the superior player is.
Yeah.
That's an Eric Name point, and it was a very good one.
Yep. That's a very, very good point. I like that one. Okay. Fringe contenders. I think this is where I probably look at Detroit, who hasn't done much this offseason, but if I were them, I wouldn't feel the need to. I think that there's a lot of development that needs to happen in Detroit. I think they're on the right track. I think that they made a lot of moves last offseason that helped propel them to where they are, and I think staying the course makes sense. Who else do you have in this tier? I think I probably have. This is probably where I'm putting Atlanta and Orlando as well. And we can kind of quibble with who we have in these two spots because these are rankings within these tiers. But thoughts on these three? Is this who you'd have in this tier as well?
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about having Orlando as the number one team in that tier.
Okay.
But I have those three teams in that tier. Detroit is a little confusing for me because that team last year, such a huge part of that team was Malik Beasley just wrecking from three.
I know.
It was Tim Hardaway Jr. getting hot from three. And at the end of the year, because their offense went to crap after the Ivy injury when Cade was off the court. And they were like 10 points per 100 possessions worse when Cade was off the court during that time. And they brought in Dennis Schroeder. And Schroeder was so important for them righting the ship. He was so important for them, enough so that he would actually close games next to Cade as a second ball handler. And he was also really important for them defensively because he gave them an element of a full court press, and they could pressure you full court with him, and they could pressure you full court with Asar Thompson. And that was really big for them. All that being said, Cade is still really young, and I seriously doubt he's done getting better. I'm sure he will have the best year of his career this year, just like he's had the best year of his career every year of his career. I think Asar Thompson is this unbelievable talent and is going to be incredibly good. And my bold prediction, it's a bold prediction that I recognize is crazy, but I do actually believe it. Like, I'm not just saying it for effect. My bold prediction is that the Thompson twins will be the first pair of siblings to each win Defensive Player of the Year. I think they are both going to win Defensive Players of the Year during their careers. They're
very good. They're both
extraordinary. And Asar still, Amen is farther along than Asar, and he's farther along as a defender. Asar is still learning discipline in a lot of places. He still has bad fouls. He still reaches too much. He's still, foot placement or balance will be off. But oh my goodness, the dude's a monster. And if he played enough last year, he would have been right there in like all defensive team contention.
Yeah.
Not Defensive Player of the Year contention, but all defensive team contention. And he is an unbelievable competitor and an insane talent, and the most absurd, would be the best athlete in the world if God didn't make a actual copy of him. The only way that God could find somebody as athletic as Asar Thompson was like, well, I guess the only choice is to just make two of them. I can only match it. I can't exceed it. I love watching that dude play. And they've got a great identity, no question. And Bickerstaff did an awesome job with them last year. And Isaiah Stewart had a great year for them. They were a very impressive team last year. I do think Orlando is the way to go. They were playing at a 50-win pace until they had all the injuries. And then when Paolo came back, they still really struggled. Desmond Bane is a great addition for them on both sides of the court. He's going to take on a lot more playmaking duties, and he's going to be able to shoot, which is big for them and will help them offensively. They were, compared to league average, I don't know what the numbers say, but I am just going to say that was the worst shooting team of all time last year, compared to what like you should be in your era. That was just a disastrous 3-point shooting team. They were easily the worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA, and they weren't even close to 29. They weren't even close to 29. Nowhere near. And I think in some ways people are talking crazy. Yeah, in some ways people are talking about the Bane edition like it's like, oh, well, now they got it. It's like, no, they weren't even close to 29. They're still going to be a really bad shooting team. Like they're still going to be a really bad shooting team. But Bane will help a very large amount. He's a very good, underrated player. Might be the best player in the NBA who's never made an all-star team. And Tyus Jones, I thought, was a great signing. He's perfect. I thought he would have been great for them last year. They need the point guard. A lot of it will come down to the health of Jalen Suggs too, because Suggs has been hurt a lot in his career. And if he can stay healthy for a whole year, like he is so important to them in terms of running their offense, being able to be a point, and then also being one of the best point of attack defenders in the NBA. That's tremendously important for them. They have a chance to be the best defense in the NBA. Team's good. I think they'll win 50 games.
There were 6 players on the Magic that took 200 or more threes. Who shot the best percentage, and what was it?
6 players on the Magic who took 200 or more threes. So the players have got to be Paolo, Franz.
Paolo and Franz, yep.
Caldwell Pope.
1 and 3. Yep, that's the top 3. So Franz, KCP, Paolo.
And then
this is wild. Suggs only played 35 games. He's number 4.
Yeah, I'm gonna say KCP was around 34%, right?
Yes.
I feel like it's either that or it's somebody like random that I'm gonna shock the world with. Like it's like Tristan Da Silva or some shit.
Da Silva.
Sorry, can I say shit?
No, but Tristan Da Silva was 5th. He took 239 threes. But he's
what? I'm gonna guess that it's one of the 2 guys who they traded for Desmond Bane. I'm gonna guess that it's I think it's either Cole Anthony or it's KCP. I'm gonna go KCP.
Oh, you should have gone with the other one. It's Cole Anthony. He's 6th in attempts and the shot 35.3%. That's the best.
And that's below league average.
Yes. So like Da Silva, 33%. Suggs, 31%. Paolo, 32%. KCP, 34%. Franz Wagner, who took 352 threes, was 29% from 3. Like they're not only like did they need to get shooting, but there needs to be internal development with their shooting so badly if they're going to make this leap as a fringe contender. Like Franz and Paolo and Suggs have to shoot better. Like they just have to. It's not on everybody else, and it's great that they got Desmond Bane, who's going to help with the spacing. But those guys just flat out have to shoot better. Like Franz Wagner has to rediscover his shot again, because if he doesn't, like that's going to put a cap on this team. Because I don't know how else they score. Because when you get to the playoffs, it's hard enough to score when you're an immensely talented team. I mean, the Thunder struggle to score in the playoffs in different spots a lot. And now it's like, okay, how does this team that cannot find spacing score in the playoffs? I mean, that to me is a massive question. It's a massive question that they've got to answer.
Yeah. No question. I mean, they've put a lot of stock in the creation of Paolo and Franz, but part of it is it's not just shooting threes, it's also creating threes. They were not great at creating good threes this year. And I think that is something that Desmond Bane will help them with. That is, and he's a good pull-up shooter too. That's something that Tyus Jones will probably help them with. And I think honestly, the answer might just be, like, we're talking about the flaws offensively, but we're calling them a 50-win team. And the reason why is because they are the best defensive team in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Everybody on that team guards. When they're healthy, I mean, Suggs is an all-defense caliber guy.
Oh.
Paolo's good. Franz is good. They're absolutely huge. Wendell Carter, good team defender. Jonathan Isaac is like the best per minute defender in the Eastern Conference, but he can't play more than 15 minutes, it seems. But he is insane when you put him out there, just unbelievably versatile defensive player. And you go through the way they play, they are just so physical. They beat the hell out of you. Goga Batadze is good guarding the rim. They have this
Anthony Black.
Yep. Anthony Black will full court press you. They play with energy. They're unbelievably physical. Bane is good. He knows how to play within a physical defense. He uses his chest well. Desmond Bane is the best negative wingspan defender in the NBA. And like you look at the way that they play defensively, it's like, I think the way they're going to have to compensate for it offensively, Zach Lowe says this all the time, they haven't had a top 10 offense since top 20 offense since 2012. Like the way that you get out of the bottom 10 in offense for the first time in a decade and a fraction is you get a whole ton of stops and then you go. Because Franz is very good in transition.
Yeah.
Suggs can be good in transition. Bane can be good in transition. He can pull up threes in transition. He can flank to the wings in transition and hit threes from there. You maybe just have to go offensively when you get turnovers, when you get stops, when you get rebounds. One of the things that they can benefit from is the fact that they play a lot of bigs who are the guys who are getting the boards are capable of just going. So maybe you're just like, Paolo, just go. You get the board, just go now, immediately. Get into a set, 19 on the clock. Go. Attack a mismatch or try to score on the break, and that could be enough to hold up an offense.
Yeah.
So that could be something. That could be something, but we'll see. They don't have to be great offensively. They just have to get by.
Regular season, yes. I have a hard time seeing the playoffs is where I really need to see it, because what you're describing is not always readily available in the playoffs. And so if they're going to be like a fringe contender, if they're going to win a round or two in the playoffs, they're going to have to find other ways, to score. Because a lot of times it is you play in the mud. And when the Magic's offense gets in the mud, it usually just stays there.
Yeah.
Doesn't get out.
Totally.
Atlanta, we haven't talked about Atlanta, and this is why I would not be surprised if by the end of the season Atlanta's above Orlando, just because offensively they could be super fun. This could be a super, super fun team that just makes way more sense. I mean, they're kind of like the anti-Magic in a lot of ways.
The dark magic.
The dark magic of the Atlanta Hawks. I think this team
they're the Atlanta reality.
They're super fun, man. I am really excited and really like what they've done. I think they have put together a really fun basketball team that I don't know exactly how good they're going to be, but this is at least going to be a league pass team.
Oh yeah. I'm going to say a disclaimer before I make this comment. Okay. I do not expect them to trade Trae Young. He's eligible for an extension. I don't expect that to happen. That's not what I'm implying here at all.
Uh-huh.
The Atlanta Hawks have a very obvious type, and that type is the exact opposite player of what Trae Young is.
Yeah, it's true.
And they say it's not because, Trae brings a lot to the table, but also takes a lot off the table. And so you have to surround him with these guys who can compensate. They say this is just the type we like. And so we're trying to bring those guys in. And it works around Trae because these are the types of guys who work around anyone. You could swap out Trae and replace him with anyone, and these guys would fit. That's the whole reason we want them. They're versatile, team-oriented players who can help you in any context. And it's a fair point. And I believe that to be true because it is. I mean, Kristaps Porzingis is another guy who I feel like he took too much flack for a terrible playoff run. He had this, disease that the virus that we don't know about, but it's not like he didn't know about it.
Don't know what it was, but it was very weird.
Yes. He says he's going to be okay. And we're talking about him like he's nothing now because he had a virus in the playoffs when it's like, I don't know if we don't know what it is. And he says he's okay. Then Kristaps Porzingis was great during the regular season. He was awesome when he returned for the finals a couple of years ago when the Celtics won the title, and unbelievable. There were people who were genuinely trying to argue until a few months ago. There was a sect of Celtics people who tried to argue that their second most important player was not Jaylen Brown, and it was not Derek White. It was Kristaps Porzingis because you couldn't replace what he gave them. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, great fit. Dyson Daniels, best defensive guard in the NBA last season. Jalen Johnson is going to be back, and he, by the way, is on a really nice contract. They signed him $30 million a year. I think that's a really good number, and he is really talented. Did a lot more off the dribble last year. Better passer than ever. They were able to get off of the Terrence Mann long-term money, which I thought was a really underrated part of the Porzingis trade. That they were able to do both those things, getting off of Mann and also still being able to acquire Porzingis. Luke Kennard is a nice get for them. He's going to do stuff off the dribble. Okongwu is a very versatile defender. They've got a lot of versatile defenders. I thought Risa Shea was really good for a defensive rookie last year. They got some. They got good players. That team. The team's good. Their books are relatively clean now. The best trade they made, the best acquisition they made this year wasn't even for players. It was the trade for the New Orleans unprotected pick.
And they have that draft pick that, who knows? what happens there. Like that could help propel them to contender status in the Eastern Conference. You know, that is a true reality for them. And so, yeah, I think this is a good spot for them. Okay. So that leaves us with 2 contenders. We could talk about where to put these teams. I still probably would put Cleveland above the Knicks, because there's just questions about what do the Knicks look like with a new head coach, and I think there's health questions with both teams certainly, but there's health questions with the Knicks. I don't know. I'm curious to see what your perspective is with these 2 teams, and if this is how you would order these 2.
Yeah, I struggle because I do think Cleveland is going to win more games in the regular season.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes.
They won 64 last year. They lost Ty Jerome. They added Lonzo Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Thought the Lonzo Ball move was good for them. They could use that extra defensive-minded guard, considering Garland and Mitchell are at the top of their defense, and Lonzo is still a very good defender. He's a really good spot-up shooter. He's really just a spot-up shooter now, but he's a really good spot-up shooter and an unbelievably smart player and a great kick-ahead passer, and he's still, awesome when he can initiate transition, that kind of stuff. He's a really good role player, and he just plays the game in every right way. I thought that was a good move for them. Brought back Sam Merrill. They won 64 last year. The East is worse. Like, if they don't annihilate this year, that's a concern. That's a real concern if they don't destroy this year. I'm not saying they have to win more than 64 games, because more than 64 games is crazy, but they should annihilate the East this year. They really should. The thing that I keep coming back to with them is they keep flaming out of the playoffs in these epic fashions. Yeah. And I get it. I know Cavs fans are going to say to me, well, everyone was hurt last year. I don't know. They played. They were on the court for the most part.
I know. Everybody has these stories after, whether you win or lose. There are stories. Jalen Williams had to have surgery on his wrist this week. And
totally,
and played through it. It's like it's not a unique thing to the Cavs. There are teams that are not even going to tell you, not that these guys are having surgery, but the guys are recovering right now from injuries that they sustained in the playoffs. Like, every single team has this.
Mm-hmm. If you play, I got to evaluate you on how you play compared to what your normal standard is. And reality is the Cavs flamed out. And if they were a playoff juggernaut for, years and years, and then they flamed out, I'd have been like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I'd look at it a little differently. Mm-hmm. But because they won a first round series last year, but it was a somewhat uninspiring series against Orlando in a really ugly 7-game series. And look, management there was unhappy enough with it that they got rid of JB Bickerstaff in the process. That was 2 years ago. And the year before, they just they had home court advantage. They had the second best net rating in the Eastern Conference. And they just it was one of the greater butt kickings that you could have in a 5-game series. Like, it was a 5-game series that felt like a sweep when they lost to the Knicks in that series, where the Knicks just manhandled them. And you talk to teams around the league, and people aren't shivering about Cleveland. I think they got to prove it. So that's where I'm a little confused about whether I put Cleveland 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks, meanwhile, were kind of the opposite of Cleveland, where all regular season, I was like, this team is not operating at anywhere near max capacity. They cannot figure out how Brunson and Cat can't figure out how to make each other better than they already are. Mikal Bridges does not look comfortable on either side of the ball. He has not been a good enough defender at the point of attack. They did not run as well. The offense after January 1st was 16th in points per possession. And it was supposed to be an elite offense. And they went 3.5 months at 16th. They stopped running pick and rolls close to as often with Cat and Brunson as they did early in the year. And then they get to the playoffs and they play and they looked like a team who would not, they were an unphysical team.
Yeah.
They go in the playoffs, they play Detroit in a very physical series and they win out in a physical battle. They go and they play Boston, who everybody and their mother thought that they would get destroyed by, and they win that series legitimately. Like Tatum gets hurt, but they're about to fall down 3-1. Boston's about to fall down 3-1 when Tatum gets hurt. Like they win that. They win that series legitimately.
Yep.
And then they have a competitive series with Indiana where they lose. Game 1 will haunt them forever, but they lose. Forever. They lose 4-2. And I don't know what to make of this team now that Mike Brown's going to take over, because certain things will change, certain things won't, and I don't know what it'll be. Will Mikal Bridges look more comfortable? I don't think he and Tibbs were a great fit there. Will Mitchell Robinson just be a greater presence for them all year, because he was absolutely unbelievable in the playoffs, and that was one of the things that really drove their postseason success, and they didn't have that in the regular season because he was hurt for essentially the whole year, and then when he came back, he was kind of recovering. Wasn't himself until really the postseason run. And if Mitchell Robinson's going to play like that in the course of a full year, which he might not, because his health is always going to be a question. But if he is, how's that going to change the dynamic of the team? They signed Jordan Clarkson. They signed Gershon Yabusele. I think those both kind of fill a need. Defensively, they're both question marks on a team that already has defensive question marks with Cat and Brunson in their starting lineup. So I don't know what to make of which team should be where right now, but I will say that these are easily the two teams in the East. And I will also say that I think if either of these teams do not win the East, there will be massive disappointment in their spots. Like if Cleveland does not win the East, they are going to be so disappointed. And if the Knicks don't win the East, after just firing their coach, and then their president putting out a statement in conjunction with the firing saying they are singularly focused on winning a championship, and they didn't feel like Tom Thibodeau would be the guy to help them win a championship. And then they hire Mike Brown and they don't do it. Yeah, they are going to be tremendously disappointed too. Like to the point that then there could be moves depending on how it goes down. So both those teams feel like, oh, if we don't win this conference, then we royally messed up.
Yeah, and this is the year. This is the year. The Pacers are gone. The Celtics are gone as we knew them. The Bucks don't have a squad around Giannis. The teams that are in this fringe contender status are all young or have a ton of question marks. This is the year for these teams, for both franchises. This is their shot to get to the NBA Finals. This is it. If it doesn't, I agree. If it doesn't happen this year, the fan disappointment, the franchise disappointment, what happens internally with both squads is up in the air, because this is the most. I mean, this past year the East was open. It is unquestionably open this year. It is. Yeah. These teams both need to make the Eastern Conference Finals, and whoever loses is going to be extremely disappointed. And if it's not both these teams in the East Finals, if the Knicks lose early or if the Cavs lose early, I do think that there will be some upheaval going on in either city. Okay, to recap real quick, the contenders, the Cavs and Knicks. I have the Cavs over the Knicks, but it is razor thin for me. You could talk me into the Knicks being over the Cavs, but I'm going to put the Cavs there. Then we go Magic, Atlanta, Detroit as fringe contenders with the Magic at the top. We have the dark horse teams. We have the Bucks, Sixers, Celtics, which is the injured dark horse tier here, where Bucks first, then the Sixers, and then the Celtics. I actually think I might move the Celtics into the middle just because I don't know. The Sixers just terrify me. The play-in range, we have the Pacers, Heat, Bulls, then the Raptors, and then the losers for Boozer. We have the Hornets, Nets, and then the Washington Wizards.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you speak Hebrew?
No. What did I
Because
say?
I mean, so for our people who are just listening on audio, Andrew's got his tears up here. He's got a little graphic on the screen.
Uh-huh.
And you've listed your rankings right to left instead of left to right. I was so confused. I'm like, he's got Knicks, then Cavs, and he's got Pistons, Hawks, Magic, but you're reading it in the opposite direction. You're reading it right to left.
I don't know why I'm doing that. Maybe it is like this. Maybe I'm acquiring Hebrew through like.
Yeah, you've been sitting around reading the Torah
in its original form.
I feel like I'm back in Hebrew school and I'm like about to sing the Shema. I got the.
If you want to sing it out, maybe that would be a great way to end this pod. Fred, thanks for taking the time. Anything you want to quibble with before we go besides the way that I do things?
I mean, there are a lot of things I want to quibble with. If we're going to open that door, we could be here for a long time. No, I just wanted to apologize again for not being Alex Spears and for taking up so much of your time. And this was fun. I always love potting with you.
Yeah, no, this is great. Appreciate you guys. Give you guys some July 4th weekend listening as you guys are traveling or whatever else. We'll be back next week with a full slate of shows, and we will be in Vegas for Summer League with the NBA Daily crew and with the Slam and Jam crew, and Fred will be there too. It'll be great. So please come check us out. We'll have shows Friday and Saturday on the concourse at the arena. So we'd love to see you guys there. I'll list the times out on the shows next week, and then also out on Twitter and everything. So there's a place where you can come on the concourse to watch the shows live. If you would like to, we would appreciate that. And also, again, Andrew versus the Street. If you're just walking around and you're wearing a jersey of a specific team, we may grab you to do some trivia. So would love to see you guys out there. Hope everybody's doing great. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we'll read it on the show. We'll be back next week with a live version of Slam and Jam. So really excited for that. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the basketball content, and we will talk to you guys again next